Alright, y'all, hear me out. What if we make a grime guard out of English paper piecing? So patrons voted for this month's website article to be a tutorial on making a grime guard, and that'll be up on my website by the time this video comes out. But while I was looking through my fabric stash to figure out which one I wanted to use for my example, I found this small hoard of hexagons that I had made forever ago when I was putting together these little quilted zipper bags. This one actually has all of my enamel pins in it, which is why it's such a thick boy. And eventually, maybe I'll turn them into needle minders or something, who knows. But for now, it's just a cute little bag. And I wanted to see if we could make a grime guard out of the remainder of these. I don't know if there's enough, we'll have to see. But let's find out. Alright, real quick, let me address the camera quality. I am using my webcam to film this instead of an actual camera because the main reason I haven't been posting on YouTube, other than not having the time or energy to edit video, is that turning on all the lights in order to film is horrible and painful for me. I'm very light sensitive, so basically the only lights on currently in my basement office at 2 a.m. is my monitors and this ring light that you see reflected on my desk turned to the lowest possible setting. Instead, I have my webcam gain turned all the way up to compensate. So if we can get this to work, maybe I can do more videos. If you're not familiar with grime guards, they're these covers that you can put on your Q-snaps or hoops. They can be used to either keep your hand oils off of the fabric so you don't have to wash your projects as often. They can be used to just tuck extra fabric. This project doesn't have a ton of extra fabric, but you know what I mean. You can tuck it all away in there. It could just be pretty. This one's got little bees on it. It's pretty cute. There's a lot of reasons you might want one of these. And I thought it would be fun to make one out of English paper piecing. I just dropped it. The other question you might have is, what is this I'm working on? This is the Midnight Whispers Stitch Along by Urban Stitches. I am very behind on it. Let's not talk about it. The other thing you might have a question about is, what is English paper piecing? Well, let me find some of my templates over here. Basically, you get a piece of paper. This is just cardstock. And cut it into whatever shape you want. I have like little tiny triangles and squares, etc. But these are hexagons. And you cut fabric slightly larger than the hexagon, like well, here's the seam allowance. And then you wrap them around the paper and baste them. You can't see it on camera very well, but there are just hand-stitched little stitches keeping it in place. Is there a darker one? Yes. Okay. So you hand-stitch the fabric onto this piece of paper to force it into this shape. And then you stitch the hexagons together to make fabric. Once they're all put together, you just take the paper pieces out and you have, you know, fabric that you can do whatever you want with, including make into a grime guard, theoretically. The real question is, do I have enough of these? So let's do some quick measurements in order to make the size Q-snap guard I want. Where is my measuring tape? I just had it. Okay. I need a strip of fabric that is at least 5 inches wide on everything. So let's see how many hexagons I need to make 5 inches. Looks like 3 hexagons side by side. Have it. Problem is when I go to stagger these, this next section so now this middle section is not quite 5 inches, and if I just try to do like a zigzag like this, this part's 5 and this part's 5, but if we're cutting a straight line down here, all of a sudden we're missing ½ an inch on one of the sides. So I think we're gonna have to actually do bore width. And then 3 in between. That way, even at the thinnest point, it is 5, and then we'll be cutting off the excess once it's all put together. Now, the other size I need is that this needs to be 36 inches long to fit around that 8-inch Q-snap, or 27 inches long to fit around my 6-inch Q-snap. So the real question here is, how many do I have, and can I make at least a 6-inch? Now I have this in here because they were all sorted by color and I wanted to be a little bit more randomized, but now it's just being annoying. So I'm gonna speed this up and we're gonna see how long I can make this before I start assembling anything, because if we need to make more, I would like to make more before I start. That way I can mix them in along the way instead of having them all on one end of the strip, if that makes sense. Let's see what the final measurement is. It's off screen, but 37 inches. Oh, that's perfect. It was like made for this. Never mind that my ruler got twisted around. It is 37 inches. Which means once we account for all these gaps and, you know, a little bit of seam allowance, we should have just enough for an 8-inch Q-snap. How serendipitous is that? And I won't have a bunch of leftover hexes, nor will I have to make some more. Alright, so we have our plan. I'm going to put these all away for now in a more randomized order. And we're going to cut to me piecing these all together. Alright, real quick, let's do one to demonstrate just how long this takes in real time. I'm going to be adding this hexie here. I'll put them right sides together. You can kind of see my stitch lines when the glare is not directly on it. But again, I have to turn the gain and brightness way up so that you can see in basically the dark. And now I'm just going to whip stitch along the edge of these two hexies. I'm trying not to catch the paper inside. I'm just getting the very edge of the fabric where I can. This light blue one with the yellow cardstock is basted on in that I just stitched it on. Meanwhile, this other one was actually glued on, so it's a little bit harder to get under the fabric without getting the cardboard, but that's okay. When I pull out all the papers at the end, some of them will have pierced through, and if you look at all these extra ones I have, there are lots of little needle marks along the edge. Like they're very textured at this point. And that is okay. So that is one single hexie. And then I will continue on adding the next one in its place. Corners didn't quite line up, that's okay. I can fudge it a little when I do the other side. And this is how I'll be continuing on for all of these hexies. So it's gonna be a while. That said, I will switch to time-lapse mode of however much I have recorded, and I will meet you on the other end when I have it all assembled. Alright, that time lapse you just watched was basically the first 3 hours that I worked on this. I did a live stream over on Twitch, which was really nice because I haven't gotten a chance to do that in a while, and I missed it, and it was nice seeing all of my old regulars and the friends that I've made over the years via Twitch. So if you were able to show up for that, thank you. It was nice seeing you. I hope I can do it again soon. And if not, that's okay. Because I stream very randomly and it's not on a schedule or anything. But anyway, that was 3 hours worth. I don't know if you saw, but at the end there, I did manage to break my needle in half. So that was fun. And that 3 hours equated to just under a third of the project. I mean, I had done some before stream, as you saw earlier in the video, and I spent the next few days doing a little bit more here and there where I could, and I thought I'd bring you back for the last hexie. This is the last one I'm stitching in right now. It's taken a total of about 11 or 12 hours. It's hard to say because some of it I did like while on break at work or while watching something with my partner, while distracted, and may not have been quite as efficient as on stream. But, you know, it's here. It's done. Finish off my thread here. Now, some of the papers have come out as I've stitched on it, just naturally. That is okay. I haven't specifically pulled any out, they've just kind of come when they wanted to. And so now we're gonna spend some time pulling out all of these. So we've got our probably at least 36 inches. I haven't actually measured since I just finished it. Yep, almost exactly 36 inches. That's gonna be perfect. So now the next step is to spend some time pulling out papers. I'm going to try to be careful with the ones around the edge because I will be cutting off any excess fabric, but we want to kind of retain the shape until I do. Alright, almost done. This took just under half an hour to get everything taken out. But that's mostly because I was trying not to rip anything, because I do want to use these again for a future project. So I would say overall the assembly process took about 12 hours. That's stitching all the hexes together and pulling out the papers. I will say that I think in the future I will just do thread basting on mine. I had tried a few with glue and I don't like them as much. They're harder to stitch together and harder to take the papers out, like that one. And then they don't stay together as nicely after the paper's out, so now I know. I don't know how long it took me to make all of these hexagons, the actual like cutting out the fabric and wrapping them around the paper, because like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that was a couple years ago and I just found them sitting on my shelf recently, so as far as I know, they just magically appeared there one day. But if I had to guess, it will take a considerable amount of time to actually cut out your fabric, wrap it around these little hexagons, baste or glue them on. Not to mention the amount of time I took cutting out these hexagons, because I just bought some color cardstock and got a hole puncher and went to work. But that's how long it took to make this strip of fabric. I'm gonna take a break here because I've been stitching all night, and then I will come back another day to finish it up, and we'll see how much this took overall. Alright, so it's been a few days and I have ironed this out nice and flat. Here's what the back looks like if you're curious. All the papers are out, everything's been ironed. I let loose the ones along the edges because we're gonna cut them off now. And we want this to be exactly 5 inches wide, so I need to get it trimmed right along the edge here. And this is gonna be quite awkward to film, so let me just move you over here a little bit. And I'm about as close to the edge as I can. And I apologize if my arm is in the way, but I don't have a better place to film right now. This is my photo workbench. Okay, I still have some scraps I might potentially use in the future. Oh, look at that nice clean edge. Okay. And we're just gonna time lapse here because I gotta cut both sides, all 36 inches of it, before we can move on. If you haven't done it in a while, now is your sign to replace your rotary blades, because this one is chewing up a storm. So let's get that out of the way. All right. Oh, look how much cleaner that gets. Yay. All right. Let's turn this around. Get my scraps out of the way. And now we're going for 5 inches. We now have a nice strip of approximately 5 inches. I kind of moved my ruler a bit there in the middle because I'm cutting in a weird position, but that's okay. I have previously cut out a strip of cloth almost 36 inches. I'm going to have to piece that together to get the full 36, but that's fine too. The only thing I could find in my stash that went okay with it was this awful, like, tea-stained looking color. We're just gonna have to go with it. It's going on the inside, doesn't much matter. I do, however, have to sew these two together to lengthen it to get a full 36-inch strip. So let me do that real quick. All right, that's been sewn together and I have pressed my seam. Now I just need to make sure it is the same length as my patchwork one. Let's get some clips. And sure enough, this backing fabric is just 1/4 inch too long. So we're gonna trim that off to match. With my nice fresh blade, it is so much sharper now. I don't know when the last time I changed it was. So take it from me. If you haven't done it in a while, this is your reminder. So normally with a Q-snap cozy, I would fold up the edge by 1/4 inch and then fold it over by 1/2 inch again to make the channel, because we want a nice clean edge on the inside. But since we have a lining fabric to work with, because I don't want all of these hexagon bits to catch on literally everything I stitch, I'm gonna try sewing this right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam, and then we're gonna turn it inside out. Now I'm still very much a beginner when it comes to sewing, so I apologize in advance for how horrible I am. I mean, that's mostly a 1/4 inch seam. It's gonna have to be close enough. So now let's do the other side, the side that I actually bothered to clip. Alright, we have our seam on both sides. We've essentially made a giant tube. So I am going to spend some time turning this right side out. And I'm going to go press these seams. I'm going to press on the lining side just because I don't want to put too much heat on this stuff if I can help it. Really need a new iron. If you have any recommendations. Don't know what the best way to force these seams to flatten is. So I'm just kind of making this up as I go, as I generally do with most of my projects, honestly. That looks good. Mostly I'm just kind of pinching the seam and then pressing it. I've never made a Q-snap cover with a lining before. That's an interesting change. This could also work if you wanted to make a Q-snap cover that you've stitched on, like if you wanted an embroidered or cross-stitched cover and you wanted to use like an even weave or something as your outside layer, but you wanted all the stitches in the back to be secure. I mean, assuming this all works out in the end, who knows? We're not there yet. But that could be an option. Or if you just wanted to do like applique or something. I am trying really hard to not burn myself while also doing this in a somewhat awkward position in order to get it on camera. How do YouTubers do this all the time? In the eventual future, when I move into a new location and have an upgraded studio and whatever, having filming space or like wall-mounted tripod so that I can set up my phone in a way to get overhead shots better might be in the cards if I have the funds. And if you guys actually end up liking these videos and want more. So I'd say that's pretty legit. I have some more ends to trim. Let me go get my scissors. Okay. So now we need to press a channel for the elastic to go down, and I do 1/2 inch typically. Could I have done some math to make the lining fabric be what's getting folded over at this point? Probably, but that's a lot of work. So I just went for what I normally do, and instead of folding over that first 1/4 inch seam, we sewed it to the lining. That still kind of works out. Now, would you all rather see more of these like experimental random projects or like actual tutorials for things that I know work? If you actually wanted to make just a normal Q-snap, by the way, the tutorial I made is linked down below in the description. It isn't quite as involved as this one, just 2 normal pieces of fabric sewn together. If you prefer a text-based tutorial versus whatever chaos this is, got it clipped together. Oh my god, look how cute that's looking. Ah! Right, we're back at the sewing machine, and let's get this sewn in place down with a 1/8 inch seam, or basically as close to the edge there as I dare. once again, proof that I am incapable of sewing in a straight line, but as long as it's functional, I don't rightly care. Let's turn it around and do the other side. Uh-oh. What's it doing now? Why is it stuck? What did it get stuck on? Oh no. Huh. Alright. Just randomly decided to make a knot there. Alright. That's cool. Alright. No, my bobbin did run out. I knew it. Okay. Let's at exactly that spot. Yeah, no, I should have known. Okay. That was my sign, and I completely ignored it and kept stitching. Oh no, it didn't run out. It just straight up broke. But it's close enough to running out that we're going to replace it. This is fine. Now that I've reminded you to replace your rotary cutter blade, let me also remind you to check your bobbins before starting your project. Alright, now that we have a fresh bobbin in place, and I've just dumped all of my threads on the ground, I might as well go ahead and trim this end. Boop. Boop. Alright. Where did it leave off? Yeah, you can see the trail and how uneven my... Okay, well. Let's once again check to make sure these two ends are even at least. And then clip this back up semi-straight. You can kind of still see where it pressed. Alright. Let's pick up right before we left off. Now, because this was already a pocket to begin with, I probably didn't have to do any folding over and could have just sewn straight down the seam there, or down the fabric, and created a channel that way, but I didn't think about that before I made the full fabric. So technically you could get away with patchwork fabric that was only 4 inches to begin with, just because you're already creating a pocket by doing that lining. You don't need extra thick pockets, but here we are. Should have done this before hemming the seams, but let's see how this is looking so far. Oh yeah, okay, good. Now we just need to add elastic. So first of all, I need to cut elastic. For 8-inch Q-snaps, I use about 18 inches, and I do not have a good way to measure that out, so. Oh my god, why are you so twisted? Oop. And let's do a second one. the elastic in place, and we're going to aim for the middle of 4 fabrics there. And I'm going to pin it to the inside here on the other end so it doesn't just get pulled straight through. And then we'll get to shoving. Alright, to avoid this from just snapping back into place, I'm going to go ahead and sew it down before I take off the safety pin. Obviously I'm not going to sew the safety pin, but and we can just trim off a little bit of elastic there. Let's do the same on the other side. Now we need woo. Okay. So basically I'm just trying to even out the elastic so that it's not bunched up on one end or the other where possible. Just by running my hand down along it. Okay. And so now to finish this off, I'm gonna move this random chopstick out of the way and we're gonna sew these two ends together very carefully because it is now very thick. It's got, it'll be what, 8 layers of fabric and 2 layers of elastic. That was definitely thicker than my machine would have liked, but we made it through. Now this could have been entirely done by hand, just like the patchwork was, but I have a machine and I need to learn to use it better. So here we are. I'm gonna go press that seam open and we're gonna try it out and have a final review. I'm gonna take better photos and post them for you in just a moment. But first, this is it fresh off of the sewing machine. Look how absolutely adorable this turned out. I love it. Was it worth 15 to 20 hours of work? Maybe. But it is pretty dang cute, and it used up those hexies in my stash, which is all I can really ask for some days. All right, and we're back to the terrible lighting in my office so that I don't get a migraine. I do really love how this came out. This was a lot of fun. It took a lot of time, definitely. I have to guess because I don't remember actually making those hexagons several years ago, so probably 15 to 20 hours overall total. It's at least 12 hours for the assembly, so do with that information what you will. If I did this again, I'd probably do a smaller Q-snap cover. I use my 6-inch a lot more than I use my 8-inch, but that's just my personal preference. I would probably make that top part like not fold that last seam and just stitch a channel down between the and use the pocket that's created between the lining and the patchwork fabric as the channel for my elastic, just so that this side edge isn't as thick. But it is completely functional and I don't mind the pudge. That's okay. I should go actually make progress on this whip because I keep using it as a photo prop for the grime guards I've been making, and I should actually work on it. This is the Midnight Whispers Stitch Along by Urban Stitches. It's sort of blackwork, but it's basically backstitch and then like half stitches to fill in the background, which is pretty cool. I will link that down in the description place. And as I mentioned earlier, I will link below the tutorial I made on how to make a grime guard. So whether you're making a patchwork version like I did, or just using up some pretty fabric in your stash, that's up to you. If you've learned something from this video, please leave a like, and if you'd like to see some actual tutorials from me, check out my website. I've got over 90 of them now, or sign up for my newsletter where I will notify you every time I put up a new one. Those articles get voted on by my patrons, so if you'd like to influence what we talk about next, check that out. And you can also get patterns every month, like this Genshin Impact one I just released recently. And don't forget to join us over on Discord if you'd like a place to chat with other stitchers and pick up tricks, and join us in community events like swaps. It's fun, it's free. Next up, I do plan to do a floss tube type intro video. So if you have any questions about who I am, what I do, that sort of thing, let me know and I'll try to include that. But whatever you decide to do, keep creating.